Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. It is cut down day. Browns to their initial 53. We'll get to that in just a minute. Former NFL quarterback Chris Sims on the narrative that Shedeur Sanders is being sabotaged by not only the Browns, but the entire NFL with fall into the fifth round.
I am sick of hearing about, there's a deep state lie that they're working behind the scenes. The whole NFL. Yeah, the NFL, who can't keep a secret from anybody, but there was a conspiracy to tell everybody not to draft Shedeur Sanders. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Come on. So, yeah, but this is what happens when you draft them, and this is why a lot of teams didn't want to deal with that or deal with this in general. But they made their bed, and now they're going to have to deal with some of these questions.
I think, above it all, it's incredibly disrespectful to Kevin Stefanski.
Totally.
I mean, a two-time Coach of the Year that has, not been always dealt the best hand with that roster at times.
You can tell he's been annoyed by this.
Right, it's very obvious.
He's very, straight and to the point with these questions. And here's another point to make. Yeah. After the way he played the other day, which was not good, that's not going to make an offensive coordinator feel or a head coach go, oh, yeah, I think we could depend on him in regular season game number 2 against the Ravens, right? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and the other thing about the whole 53, or the NFL looking at that, they can't agree to agree. They would stab somebody in the back to get an advantage. So there's no collusion. I agree 100% with Chris Sims. It's a ridiculous narrative. Former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky analyzing both Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel on film.
This is Shedeur in the fumble. The receiver in motion is going to get open at the top of his break. Ball's got to be out right now. That's NFL timing. That's NFL windows. He holds on to it. It leads to a sack fumble. That's something that he's going to have to grow and develop of understanding how quickly it happens. This one, the defense wins the rep. They call it bootleg. The defender's there. It's first down at the 48-yard line. Instead of throwing it away, we run for a 3-yard loss, and it becomes that 2nd and 12 and a half, 2nd and 13. Okay, now we're 2nd and 13. The ball should get out to the tight end. But now we're running around trying to dance, and again, it's a loss of yardage of 6 yards, and we're hurting the football team. This is Dillon Gabriel, 3rd and 10. The backer up top right near the hash is going to trigger. Look how quickly he plays. Sees that guy vacate. He wants to be in between those 2 second-level defenders with the ball placed in the tight end. He knows that the tight end's running that 10-yard hook route. Ball's out now. Receiver's not looking for it, guys. This is the anticipation, the NFL timing that matters. That ball is out before that receiver's open, and it's out of his hands in 2 seconds. That's how you minimize a pass rush. This is that thrash sail route, bottom of the screen. You're going to want to throw that deep corner. It's 3rd and 6. 1, 2, 3 hits. The ball's coming out of his hands in 2.3 seconds before thrash is running that route, and he flattens it. And I always say this. You can have anticipation without accuracy, and you can have accuracy without anticipation. It won't make you good.
And Dillon Gabriel showed both the accuracy we heard in camp, kind of all over the place. In the 2 games he's played in, it's been pretty good. And he's looked like a guy that can play in the league. We'll see. So the Browns have made their initial cuts to 53. Again, we'll have more on those in just a minute. 2 of the bigger names, Dustin Hopkins was cut, as was Deontay Johnson. Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot from the Plain Dealer cleveland.com on how active she thinks Andrew Berry in the front office will be tweaking the back half of that 53 roster over the next couple days.
Oh, I think they'll be pretty active. Once you have that number 2 spot, you're going to have a really nice selection of players over the next couple of days. So I do think that they will be active, and this is going to be very fluid, the back end of the roster. So I would watch for maybe some defensive backs. I mean, they could probably use a cornerback or 2. There are some positions that they will definitely add to.
Did Luke Floria do enough to get on the practice squad?
Yeah, I think he probably will be a candidate for the practice squad. He was really good. He did a nice job, and so yeah, I think you can put him down as a candidate for that.
We will talk about the cuts down to 53. Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report is up first. Let's turn our attention to the Guardians. Shut out again last night, 9-0. So they lose to the Rays at home, third straight game that they have been shut out. They haven't scored in 28 innings. They are falling rapidly out of the playoff hunt. They go against Tampa Bay again tonight. Parker Messick will get the start for the Guardians against Shane Baz for the Rays. Also some Cavs news. Max Strus will have surgery to repair a Jones fracture in his left foot that he suffered during training. He's going to be out 3 to 4 months. So Max Strus on the shelf 3 to 4 months for the Cavs. It's week 2 of high school football coming up Friday, and we want to remind you, Friday Night Huddle on Rock Entertainment, place to go for all the scores and highlights from all across the Buckeye State. Join legendary head coach Chuck Kyle and I. Friday Night Huddle from 9:30 to 10:30, Friday nights on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. All the scores and highlights from across Ohio. Join us for Friday Night Huddle, 9:30, Rock Entertainment Sports Network. Head to watchrockentertainmentsports.com. That's watchrockentertainmentsports.com for channel and programming information.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Mentioned the cut down to 53, the initial 53. Here are some of the names that the Browns let go. Dustin Hopkins, the kicker, which initially Austin Schmitz will be the kicker. We'll see if that stands. They also let go veteran wide receiver Deontay Johnson. A couple of really good defensive ends. Caden Davis gets cut. Christopher Edmonds, certainly a candidate for the practice squad, was pretty good at the safety position. Amani Marshall, another guy that likely a candidate. We've heard they want Cade McDaniel back. He had an injury designation. Pierre Strong also with an injury designation. And Keurer, the offensive tackle, also let go. Last night, Browns traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick in the 2026 draft. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Jeff, you look at the roster right now, only running backs are Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. 4 tight ends is another one. 10 DBs, I guess, you know, when you and I were talking, I guess that's pretty standard. Was there anything that really surprised you?
I don't know if I would necessarily say surprised, but like you have to go through some of this and, you know, look where this team is at. And, you know, I know everybody, you know, wants the team to hopefully be competitive in 2025. But, you know, I think if we're all looking at this realistically, you know, there's probably a better opportunity of the window is probably going to be 2026. My first impressions are there's a lot of youth here, you know, between undrafted free agents and certainly the first legitimate Cleveland Browns draft class they've had since the Deshaun Watson trade. Dustin Hopkins, and, you know, the thing with kickers is, you know, in 2023, when Dustin Hopkins was pretty special, you know, I think most of it was, you know, fans and everybody, well, you're supposed to make the kicks. So I think when you have a great year, I don't think you necessarily get the credit you deserve. But then when you have a down year, certainly like you did in 2024, you know, it's the weight of the world. You know what I'm saying? And every finger is pointed at you. I think the fact of the matter is that Dustin Hopkins has probably never been the same since Christmas Eve in Houston. If we remember, that was the game he got hurt, missed the rest of the regular season that year. And, you know, in 24, he just was never the same. I think it was time to move on. The wide receiver position, the way it worked with Isaiah Bond is it was going to come down to basically 3 guys for 2 spots. You know, DeAndre Carter, Gage Lavardane, and certainly Deontay Johnson. You know, word was dropping last night that it looked like the Browns were going to move on from DeAndre Carter, which, you know, basically told you, you know, maybe that was good sign for Gage Lavardane. Now, today, the word came out, that it looked like it was going to be that Carter was staying. I think everybody thought that maybe Dane was in trouble, but I think it just kind of pointed out the fact that, Deontay Johnson, he's not going to bring you anything on special teams. And when we did the show yesterday, my thing was if we're even discussing whether or not Deontay Johnson has earned a roster spot, I think that's the question for us that tells us he hasn't. He needed to go out there, and he needs to look like the second best wide receiver Cleveland had this summer. And the fact of the matter is he did not look better than Jamari Thrash. And what are you going to do now? And, and he's been, for all intents and purposes, a model citizen when he's been here. But it was obvious that, 3 wide receiver sets, and the Browns do not really like to take a tight end off the field. So that means they don't go a lot of 4 wide receivers. Meant it was going to be Judy, meant it was going to be Tillman, meant it was going to be Jamari Thrash. So now you have this 29-year-old guy, to his credit, had been a good soldier, but was not going to be on the field very much and has had an issue of being a tad bit of a malcontent. I'm not saying that was the reason they did it. I think the thing they just felt is, we're going to move on from possibly a guy like Gaze Lavardane, who showed us he could return, showed us he could receive, showed he could be, positive part of the offense with the ball in his hands, running jet sweeps. And DeAndre Carter is, in a lot of people's opinion, a plus returner. So it came to the point where I just think they didn't have much of a choice, and it was maybe time to move on from Johnson, because if he had proven it, I think there wouldn't have been an issue. They would have kept Deontay Johnson around. But, now when you're talking about a 7-year, 6-year difference in age between Johnson and Lavardane, who certainly looked better than Deontay Johnson in every preseason game, you ran yourself into a position where you might have moved on from a guy and said, oh, well, maybe we can get him to the practice squad. But what if you didn't? And I think that's kind of where it's at. My other impression is, there's definitely some guys who the Cleveland Browns said, you're on the 53-man roster. But, I wouldn't go, finalizing a lease just yet.
Yeah. Have you heard anything relative to Quinshon Judkins? You would think something would be coming from the league, just giving the Browns at least an idea. Have you heard anything?
What we're hearing is a little bit mixed, but the thing, what I think though is, here's the difference. Everybody wants to think he's going to, fall under what Mike Hall did last year. Mike Hall ended up pleading guilty to a charge. I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's no way, Quinshon Judkins right now, there's going to be no charge. He's not pleading anything. They, literally stopped prosecuting the case. They found evidence that essentially proved what her story was untrue. So, yeah, I mean, there could legitimately be a suspension and understood. But my guess would be 2 games max. I mean, because Mike Hall pleaded down. I mean, he literally, so there were charges that, ended up getting finalized against Mike Hall. It's a big, big difference legally compared to what Quinshon Judkins is. Judkins is going to be more of, the slap on the wrist for getting yourself into a situation you probably shouldn't have gotten yourself into. Whether or not it's imminent, I don't know, yes or no. Do I think it's coming, quickish? Probably. Also, there are a couple attractive running backs, that have gotten released, that were part of the 2024 draft class. There was a couple of backs. You got to remember, this draft class this year in 2025 was loaded. So there's some guys who just got cut from rosters from what was a loaded draft class. You have to think the Browns definitely have their eyes on that. And it's not just necessarily the Quinshon Judkins thing. Look, I'm a Jerome Ford guy. I think people do not give Jerome Ford the amount of credit he deserves over the last couple of years. But when the Cleveland Browns told Jerome Ford, yeah, congratulations on this money the league felt you earned, but we're basically going to tell you we're not going to pay you that money, and basically cut his money back down to basically 50%, it kind of tells you that maybe the Browns, like Jerome Ford, don't necessarily love Jerome Ford. So if you can get a 4th back in here now, and that basically gives you 3 running backs for 2026 going further, certainly something to keep an eye on.
Well, one of those names that we know the Browns kind of were looking at last year is Audric Estime, and Jordan Schultz reports Broncos move on from him. 2nd year back, had a couple of games where he got a lot of carries, a couple games where he didn't play much for Sean Payton and the Broncos. Young guy, though. I think he's still 21. I think he was 20 during his draft eligible thing, so really young back.
He will turn 22. I don't remember if it's September 6th or September 14th, but that's when he will turn 22. New Jersey high school teammate of Cleveland Browns center Luke Whippler. In 2022, he was the main bell cow. at Notre Dame for Tommy Rees, 925 yards, 11 touchdowns. That doesn't always connect. Like these are just things we bring up, and everybody thinks automatically there's a connection. There was a connection between Jalen Milroe and Tommy Rees. Obviously, that didn't lead to Jalen Milroe coming to Cleveland. The 40 time killed him at 4.7. But when you talk about a back who's bigger, does he have explosion? Well, a 38-inch vertical jump. I mean, that's pretty good explosion to me. There's, tape of him at Notre Dame hurdling defenders. That tells me he's got pretty good explosion. Some of the word out of Denver was, he wasn't always necessarily happy with where he was at on the, the depth chart. And, maybe that's something on him. I mean, you're drafted in the 5th round. I didn't think he thought you were just going to walk in and become, basically the starting running back. I'm not sure how he handled all the activity the Denver Broncos showed to the running back room, J.K. Dobbins, drafting R.J. Harvey. But yeah, I mean, it's a really, really appealing guy. And yeah, he may not have an elite 40 time, but he's a patient runner, which we know plays well, usually into the wide zone system, 220 something pounds. And, the Browns, the analytic approach at the running back position would be, we'll spend the money, but we'll spend it on a few guys, understanding the attrition of the position. So if we have 3 guys we like, hopefully each week we have 2. Nick Chubb certainly blew that narrative out of the water because he was just so good, and the Browns never really got to go that route. But if you said Judkins, a 2nd-round pick, and you said Sampson, a 4th-round pick, and Estime, a 5th-round pick, that kind of gives you the look about the way, analytically you'd want to build a running back room. 3 guys you can all have faith in, can go with at any time, and God forbid somebody's dinged up, the room doesn't take a huge, huge hit from week to week.
When you look at the Browns' running game, and it's been a staple for Kevin Stefanski, how concerned are you? I don't have a feel for this right now. I have no idea what Judkins is at the NFL level. I know you like Ford. I'm okay with him, I guess.
I think the thing at this is, like, if you're looking at it, it's like, can we grade where we think the room is at? No. Right now, it's an incomplete. We didn't see enough of the offensive line this summer. We didn't see Joe Bitonio play. Unfortunately, Ethan Posick got hurt. However, Luke Whippler probably was one of the bigger names that was talked about this summer. And I think that's maybe because we finally got to see Luke Whippler play on a consistent basis. First 2 years, pretty much injury marred for Luke Whippler. But, we didn't really get to see Jerome Ford play much. We didn't get to see Dylan Sampson play much. So, with the starting offensive line, so we have no idea where the running game is going to be at. And, this has always kind of been, where is the Browns offense at? 2020, they went to the playoffs. Nick Chubb was fantastic. 2023, we know Nick Chubb went down, but Jerome Ford, and Kareem Hunt at the time, provided a lot of production at the running back position. So, for the Browns offense to succeed, running the ball is key. For the Browns to win, running the ball is key because it helps them control the clock, which allows their defense to be rested and get after the quarterback, which is, the best strength that defense has. It's hard to say concern because I think you kind of like all the parts that are involved. But, how do you fairly, say something's positive without seeing it? You just can't do that. So it certainly will be interesting. And, we've talked about this a little bit. The Bengals week 1 may not be the fairest test to determine where the Browns running game is at because it hasn't looked very good this summer. So, even if the Browns were to look good week 1 against Cincinnati, that maybe could be some false hope in the running game. But, we all know how important that is to Coach Kevin Stefanski and to the overall success for the Cleveland Browns to be competitive.
Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now I can step aside to quick time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, love the show. I got a little question for you. The Browns have basically said at the draft, letting you know by trading them picks that they're all in on a quarterback in 2026. So what if Arch Manning doesn't come out and he stays another year in college? Does Cleveland find a way to move their picks to get picks for the following year and then tell us, well, we got our quarterback next year? Or do they have somebody other than Arch in mind, do you think? Because wouldn't that be a hoax that he doesn't come out and then they tell the fans again, our quarterback's in next year's draft? So I just want to hear your thoughts. Go Browns. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, I don't know about you. I don't think Arch Manning's coming out. I think he's going to be in college for a couple of years. The guys they'd be looking at, Aller, Nussmeier, there's Klubnik. I'm not as high on him. We'll see. Lenora Sellers. There are, and nobody knows for sure because, the guys you had at the top of the draft class this year before the season, they're not the ones that are at the top of the draft class when the draft hits. But it's not aimed at Arch Manning. It's aimed at getting a guy that, the guys we're talking about are the big prototypical guys that can throw the. Nussmeier's intriguing. His father's like the one of the offensive coaches for the Saints. So those are good things.
Well, I think the one thing I will say with Arch Manning is the one thing that would give me some really, really wonder is one of the worst teams in the NFL, in my opinion, right now is the New Orleans Saints. If the New Orleans Saints were to secure the number one pick, you really wonder if that would be something that would sway a decision if they were on the fence anyway whatsoever, saying, well, because what that would do for the franchise economically, what that would do for the area economically would be interesting. But, Drew Allar, certainly. Cade Klubnik is certainly interesting as far as I think somebody that would maybe Kevin Stefanski would like. Lenora Sellers out of South Carolina is a really interesting guy, just a kid, really, really young, but, 6'4", runs, strong arm. And this is a discussion myself and some of the guys at the OBR were actually having we all try to figure out what we think Kevin Stefanski's ideal quarterback is. And I don't think any of us know. And the thing is does Coach Kevin Stefanski actually know? Like, isn't he saying, because you look at Dylan Gabriel, and as much as they like Dylan Gabriel, there's certainly some boxes there that just don't check as far as, physical attributes, that type of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see, what actually would be Kevin Stefanski's ideal guy. The good news is there'll be several options, and hopefully, one of those guys will certainly be his flavor. The other thing is even if it's one of these guys, and maybe they are a guy you draft high, just for example, say it was an Anthony Richardson in this draft class, and you understood he's not day one ready. That's where Dylan Gabriel could come into play. That's where Shedeur Sanders could come into play. You'll have a very young room, and maybe the guy you draft doesn't have to be a franchise savior from the day he walks into the building, and they can hopefully, if they love him but feel he needs a little time, can give him maybe that time to marinate a little bit, work on some physical skills that need to be maybe upgraded to be successful within the system.
Right, and the thing is, the Browns have been looking for a quarterback for so long. If they get 2 or 3 of them that can play, those are first world problems. We don't worry about those. Let
me tell you something. They ain't going to worry if the guy who can play has to wear a baseball hat. If they can all play, they will be more than fine with that.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. What do you think when I see this defense? I see a lot of problems for opposing offenses. Relative to what it was a couple years ago with Jim Schwartz, where do you think this one ranks?
Look, I mean, I think first off, when you talk about 2024, I think you have to give some serious, understanding to that things were so bad. You felt the defense at times were just like, man, there's just nothing we can do. Not that that's, it sounds like a cop-out, and it probably is. But it's got to be difficult when you're out there and, man, we got to hold them to under 15. We got to hold up. I'm saying that's a really tough spot to be in as a defense. I think what I noticed from 25 thus far to 23 is the overall speed, is the hats to the ball. And I know we talked about this a ton in 2023, even when there was a tackle missed in 23, maybe the guy got another yard or maybe he didn't. because maybe he shook an ankle tackle from one guy, but there was one guy up, under his chin on his numbers. So it was like such much better of a group effort in 2023. Certainly the pass rush, with Miles having a Defensive Player of the Year season, but everybody else being good as well. I think the way you look at this now, and you get a boost today that Mike Hall not practicing, but is now past a physical. So you basically got these 10 guys who I think the Browns really, really like this group, and every single one of them pretty much can, in one way or another, has some pass rush ability. Every one of the 10 guys they kept has some pass rush ability. That is a really, really impressive thing. The linebacker room, I think Schlesinger's really going to become special. I also think if you're going to able to generate the pass rush similar to 2023, that uplifts the secondary as a whole. You know what I'm saying? You're not covering as long. You're not chasing routes that could be 3 to 4 seconds. A lot of it is just trail coverage. And, a lot of those balls in 2023, even if the quarterback got rid of them, they were straight overthrows, or they were thrown over his shoulder out of bounds on purpose. I really think the defense, feels a heck of a lot better than it was in 2024. Even though you probably have some questions, certainly about the way this cornerback room is going to finish shaking out and what exactly, the safety rotation is going to look like. We know what we have in Grant Delpit. We're very confident in Grant Delpit. But you got to think between the other 4 guys they've kept that are there, look, there's nothing stopping anybody from stepping up and claiming some legit playing time. Can it please be one of them?
Yeah, before I let you go, how concerned are you of the secondary? And are there some guys that names are out there as cut-down casualties that you think the Browns would be looking at?
There are. You're in a tough spot, though, because Tennessee's in front of you. Tennessee's cornerback room is not that great either. I think they really like the kid Dom Jones that they kept. Don Jones, he's 6'2". He's long. You know what I'm saying? I think they like him because maybe he can kind of give them something of what they're missing with Martin Emerson Jr. Kobe Bryant was a really interesting guy, in the draft process who just got released by the Atlanta Falcons. 6 foot, 185. He's got really some good long arms. But the question is I think, what they're looking to answer is maybe nickel. And nickel's really, really tough. A guy like Mike Hilton is out there. But, Mike Hilton's been in the league almost 10 years now. I think this will be year 10 or year 11. And, maybe, the bloom is kind of off the rose, so to speak. Can Cam Mitchell step up? Miles Harden really didn't get to play at all last year. Is it really just an opportunity that Harden gets to play and maybe, he picks up a little bit? But, yeah, they're going to need some help. I mean, could it also be that a guy like Dom Jones comes in nickel and dime situations, and you hate to do it to Greg Newsome, but like, Greg, we know you can play there. It's not easy for other people to learn to play nickel or guys to just play nickel in general. We know Greg can do it. So do you pacify Greg by saying, hey, we'll let you go to play out there on first, and maybe if it's second and short, but if it's obvious passing situations, maybe the best part for us is to have you go back inside because maybe that's where the biggest threat is.
Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Anytime. Voice is going, so I think you can tell we're getting closer and closer to week 1, guys.
Sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always great stuff. Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. Ohio, lottery. Put a little play in your day.
am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns play-by-play voice, Andrew Siciliano, with what he's seen from Joe Flacco this season.
I am bullish on what Joe Flacco can do in this offense, and I've been saying this for 6 weeks, long before he won the starting job, and it wasn't by default. Like, go back to Carolina 2 weeks ago with 8 quarterbacks there. The Browns had 5. Deshaun was actually on that trip, but obviously he was in street clothes. He wasn't playing. So between the 8 quarterbacks that were throwing passes that day in Carolina, Joe Flacco was the best. He was the best. On the other field, you had, what's his name, Bryce Young and Andy Dalton, who can still sling it a little bit, obviously. And then you had Jack Plummer, who just got cut. But of the 8 that were there, the oldest one there was the best. So let's go. Roll the ball out there against the Bengals defense that's been retooled that gets Trey Hendrickson back. I don't know that we're going to get a shootout. I think the Browns defense is going to have a good day, but then again, what's the secondary look like against Joe Burrow? I mean, this one's fun for me, guys. Like, I'm excited to see Joe Flacco.
Let's welcome in Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football. Damon, what are your thoughts? Just the offense in general with Joe Flacco.
So I think we all know that Joe can still sling the ball pretty well, has a great arm. We know that there's no issue with Flacco reading and diagnosing a defense and, getting through his progressions. So, he brings a lot to the table for the Browns in the offense. Definitely a stabilizing force versus having to play a rookie so early, especially with a tough schedule. I think for me, the biggest question is going to be how the offensive line performs, especially early in the season, their ability to stay healthy, and whether or not they can keep him comfortable in the pocket and upright, all of those things. And I think that if they do that, they have a chance for some success. Flacco can certainly help them win some games over this first 6 weeks of the season.
So Kevin Stefanski moments ago made it official. Dillon Gabriel has been named the backup to Joe Flacco. I don't think anybody, with Kenny Pickett being traded last night, I don't think this is a surprise even a little.
Yeah, I think, the way that Gabriel has performed over the last 2 weeks during the preseason really made, the front office and Stefanski comfortable enough to move on from Kenny Pickett, so long as they were offered a decent enough draft pick. And, being able to trade Pickett for what you acquired him for certainly lands in that category. And I think that, for Gabriel, what Stefanski and the front office loved about him in the draft process has certainly shown up here in the preseason and training camp. And he will certainly, be able to, if he can be in a position where he is comfortable, can get the ball out quickly, make decisions quickly, and be that distributor, kind of the point guard of the offense, he's, well suited for that backup position.
So Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, was asked if she thinks either Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel can kind of prove themselves as the franchise quarterback this season.
You never know. I mean, you just never know. I think they want to see what they have in those guys, and I think they're very intrigued especially right now by Dylan with what we saw in him in the Rams game. You know, he really showed some things there. So I do think they want to see exactly what they do have in these guys so that it can help inform what they do in 2026. But I don't think either of these guys are going to have really enough time to prevent them or preclude them from drafting a quarterback next year.
Agreed.
I think they're going to have to do something with those 2 first-round picks in terms of a quarterback.
Yeah, Damon, I agree. And I've said that from the beginning. They would have to go out either Sanders or Gabriel, and it would have to be like a Jalen Daniels type of quarterback performance like the Commanders got. And probably not going to get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, they probably aren't going to have enough games to, get that amount of work in under their belt and, have a season similar like Daniels or even like Baker Mayfield had his rookie year here in Cleveland. So I think that, ultimately, Gabriel, as promising as he's been, I think that ultimately, it would seriously take a lot for them to, forego drafting a quarterback next year, but based on his performance, just based on him being kind of an outlier with his size. With Shedeur Sanders, you never know what you're going to kind of get once he gets an opportunity. And I think at some point he will get an opportunity this year, along with Gabriel after Gabriel plays. But because they will want to just get an evaluation on both before the 26th draft. But still, it would be a tall task. And I don't think that either one of them, being drafted in the 3rd and 5th round, are going to be able to make the Browns pause on drafting their franchise quarterback next year.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Joe Flacco and the offensive line. What concerns you most about the offense? And then I guess the where I'm going with that, ideally, how many times does Flacco throw this if they're playing the way Kevin Stefanski wants to do? I don't think they're throwing it 40 times.
Yeah, so both of those are kind of tied together for me, Dave. I think that, my biggest concern on the offense right now, minus Quinshon Judkins being there, is the actual running game and who's going to kind of be that downhill running back, the short yardage back in the scheme. We know what Jerome Ford can do. Dylan Sampson is, I would put him more in a similar mold, kind of, an elusive, quick back. He can, make a cut and get upfield quickly, and make guys miss in space. But we need somebody who's going to be able to, carry the load a little bit more running the football. So that's a big question. I think as far as, how many times ideally you would like Flacco to be throwing the ball, I would say, somewhere between 20 to 25 times would be a great spot for them to be in and world for them to live in. But, as we saw in 2023, we had to rely on Flacco a little bit more with the absence of the run game and somebody like, Nick Chubb in there carrying the load.
Damon Wolfe from Football in Motion and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Mustafa Womack, 50-year Browns fan. I just want to say that everyone seems to be spinning the narrative that Shedeur Sanders probably got shafted because he didn't go in for the last 2 minutes. But I'm more inclined to think that maybe Stefanski pulled him because, let's be honest, most of the guys that were on the field for those last 2 minutes probably are not going to ever play in an NFL game this year. And why waste your potential quarterback getting hurt? Why risk that? Had he torn his Achilles or something, then we'd be with a different narrative. let's just stay positive. Go Browns. Let's have a good year.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Damon, I'd say on both sides, guys that were on the field at that point in time probably won't play in an NFL game this year. It was clear that Sanders was not at the top of his game and seeing the field the way that he needed to. So I have no problem with him pulling him. You know, he had 5 series and he was getting sacked and getting beat up.
Yeah, Shador definitely had his opportunities in that game. That said, I would have liked to have seen Stefanski give him the opportunity to go out there with a 2-minute warning. You had an opportunity to see Gabriel go out with the offense before the end of the first half and execute the 2-minute offense and drive down there. So I would have liked to have seen it. And, of course, with Shador Sanders, I think that he performs well when the pressure's on. But that being said, I certainly can understand why Kevin just decided to get him out of there. I don't think it was any situation where Kevin was trying to give, Sanders the shaft. I think that, Tyler Huntley, he wanted to get him an opportunity to get a look, put some film out there before cuts, knowing that they were going to move on from him. And then also Shador had just had the rough day and, it was probably time for him to come out at that point, whether it be risking injury or looking even worse than what he did.
So Browns are second for waiver claims moving forward. Are there any names that are out there that you think would intrigue them that are targets for Andrew Berry to bring in and kind of turn the back end of this roster?
Yeah, well, when I was doing my final 53 roster prediction the other day on Sunday morning, I had trouble trying to find the final few players that I actually really wanted to keep on the roster. So I think the Browns are really going to have an opportunity to upgrade those last few spots. I think that they will look to take advantage of that, having the second overall order in that waiver process. And there are some players and specifically some positions that I think the Browns really need to try to address. Number one would be the running back position, minus any news on Quinshon Judkins at this point. So there are some players available there. I really like Damian Martinez, who was drafted by the Seahawks, who was just released today. He was a borderline top 100 player for me during the draft process. I know he fell a little bit because of some character issues. But he's exactly the kind of physical downhill running back that the Browns could use right now. Along with Audric Estime from the Broncos, who was waived earlier today. He should be somebody that the Browns are looking to bring in, fits that style as well. Then other positions I'm looking towards would be the tight end position. I think keeping the 4 tight ends today was a little bit of a surprise for me. And I thought that they could have upgraded their, possibly, look to upgrade their. So Josh Wiley, who was released by the Tennessee Titans, is somebody who stands out. His former 5th-round pick by the Titans, had a couple of really good years, can block. I think he brings a little bit more blocking than the 2 guys like Whitehart and Bates do, currently already on the roster. And then, of course, we have to really be looking at the cornerback position. I think that the Browns are still in desperate need of somebody that they can rely on to play on the outside there to back up Denzel and Greg Newsome. So looking at a guy possibly like an Eli Ricks, who was released by the Philadelphia Eagles, who's flashed and was a former 5-star recruit coming out in college and played at Alabama. So I think those guys are some of the guys that I'm watching for. But I do think the Browns will certainly be putting some claims in tomorrow.
Yeah, and we'll see that that'll continue to go on, heck, into the weekend as well. Former NFL quarterback Chris Sims was asked if he was taking over or under 4.5 wins for the Browns. This from NBC Sports. Chris Sims unbuttoned.
I'm going to go under here. Yeah. I'm going to go under. I am. I mean, I certainly – I look at it and go, okay, running back, all right. I mean, We'll see where that goes. We don't know what's going to happen with Quinshon Judkins.
Right. When will he be ready?
O-line's aging and getting older.
It felt like it fell off a cliff last year.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Receivers, Jerry Jeudy was really good last year.
Right.
But again, I don't think I'm not ready to call him like a game breaker, game plan destroyer. We got to change everything we do just because of him. He's damn good, don't get me wrong. But is he like a superstar one? No, not at all. That's not who he is.
Right.
So, yeah, there's things over there. And then you talk about the quarterback. Yeah, and then there's issues there. Yeah, Joe Flacco's the starter. I like that. Okay, cool. But Joe Flacco also, as we've seen, he can make a lot of big plays. He can turn the ball over. He can hold the ball in the pocket, strip sack, fumble. He can make some really crazy decisions throwing the football that you're not used to seeing a guy with 15+ years of experience make. So there's a lot of things there. I'm definitely going to go under between the schedule, all the shit going on at quarterback, the circus that's going on there, everything. Yeah, I'm not going to believe in Cleveland here.
Damon, I understand the rationale. The thing I keep coming back to, I think the defense is that good that I think they can win 6-7 games, and if the offense can do anything, but shoot themselves in the foot, they can get up to 7-8 wins, and then who knows?
Yeah, I'm definitely more in line with you there, Dave. I think that the Browns, are certainly going to win more than 4.5 games this year. I think that the young rookie draft class is really going to help them on the field overall. When you think about guys like Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, we did get good news today that the Browns didn't put Mike Hall on injured reserve, so that means he'll be back sooner than later. And I just think that this defensive line is just going to be so disruptive. We saw it all throughout the preseason and training camp and joint practices. So, the Browns defense is certainly going to create problems for opposing offenses. And I think that, like, on the offensive side of the ball, I get the concerns there. I think that you have to kind of believe in the coaching to carry you through that. And I think that with Stefanski, and it being back into the roots of his offense, along with some of the innovation that Tommy Rees is going to bring in to the offense. And then you have Mike Bloomgren coaching up the offensive line, and that seemed to be a really great addition for them so far this season. They're playing with intensity, and I just think that they're going to surprise a lot of people at the end of the day, and they'll be able to get enough points scored with Joe Flacco back there to be competitive and win some games.
Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Damon.
No problem, Dave. Anytime. Thank you.
Damon Wolfe, make sure you check him out. Always good stuff, In Motion Football. We're going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
No, guys, I have a question. Does that GM ever look into anything? You got Kenny Pickett, and you traded him for a fifth. Now you trade him for that fifth back, but the Raiders need him more than we do. So why wouldn't you try to negotiate to get a higher draft pick than just turning around and giving him a 5 and saying, here, you can have him? Because now we don't have a veteran backup besides anybody. He never played. So, but we'll just do here. You can have him for number 5. Let me get this over with so I can get back to dinner. Then he turns around, and now you've got a second-round running back pick who might go back to college again. So there goes another draft pick out the door. Boy, oh boy, besides our coach, this guy's a real wing-ding. Take care, guys.
As always, appreciate the voicemails. Let's welcome in Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Pete, I'm pretty sure they went back and forth and tried to determine the draft pick for Kenny Pickett. They are obviously happy with Dillon Gabriel. Doesn't mean they wouldn't bring in, a veteran that they might stash on the practice squad.
Well, there's a couple things with this. One, I wasn't sure the Browns were going to be able to get as much as they did for Kenny Pickett, simply because it seemed like the market was getting flooded with quarterbacks that were being waived, and the Raiders wanted to get a veteran. There were a number of them out there, and it was good that the Browns were able to basically recoup the pick they gave up. In addition, they get a roster spot back, which I think is part of the reason they really wanted to do this, was to be able to keep another player they want. And then it obviously cleans up some stuff with your position. Now, undoubtedly, there is some risk here. You haven't seen a whole lot like Kenny Pickett, but he has played in the NFL, whereas Dillon Gabriel hasn't, other than a few preseason games. So, hopefully Joe Flacco doesn't go and get hurt tomorrow, but certainly the idea that you are already at a rookie, if Joe Flacco were to get hurt, isn't ideal. But I just think the upside there for everything else was just too much for the Browns to pass on, because I think they were more than comfortable with the possibility of staying with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and again, Philadelphia waived DTR, so they took a shot with Pickett, and fifth in, fifth out, and they go about it. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi on if there's any way the trade of Kenny Pickett could potentially clear the way for Deshaun Watson to possibly return to the field.
There is a path, and the path is this. If they don't add a fourth quarterback to the practice squad, or have one in reserve, and if a need arises for someone else to take over, you know what happens. The dominoes fall on this quarterback roster every year. And Watson continuing to recuperate and be in shape to be healthy and medically cleared. If the need arises, I now will say it's possible. I don't think that's the plan, but I think it's a fallback.
Pete, again, I don't know your thoughts. I'm hoping we don't see Deshaun Watson. If Flacco gets hurt, neither of the rookies looks good. Yeah, I guess it could happen.
I think you have a better chance of playing quarterback for the Browns than Deshaun Watson ever does again. And it comes down to the simple fact that what it represents. I wrote this, last year. Deshaun Watson sucked the life out of a franchise, just completely and totally. And if you send him out there, it just absolutely will kill your team, both from the locker room and fan base. I don't think the Browns will ever go that route again. In addition to the fact, just from a logistics standpoint, Deshaun Watson looked slow before he got hurt. He couldn't move all that well, and he's coming off an Achilles injury, and we just watched how sort of limited Kirk Cousins was trying to come off his own Achilles injury, and he's not a guy who's relying on his legs. So I think, you're seeing every so often Deshaun Watson puts out videos of his progress and all this stuff. I don't think any of this is realistic in terms of the near future, but I just think the Browns will throw anything out there before they're willing to put Watson out there, because I think if Watson sets the field again, all bets are off as far as this regime. I think that the negativity that goes with this will potentially wipe everybody out.
Yeah, and again, I can't argue with that sentiment, but we'll see. I know you wrote an article, and Shedeur Sanders, he didn't look good against the Rams. Let's just be honest. He all of the negative things that you heard about him on his tape coming out of Colorado were kind of put in 5 series in that preseason game. Take us through kind of the article that you wrote with Sanders.
Well, I mean, look, he is talented. There was talk that he was a first or second round quarterback. Personally, I thought he was a second round quarterback. But so far, between the talent that everybody thought he had and the celebrity, nobody has really been willing to take him seriously just as a developmental rookie quarterback. And everybody's been trying to make him into this thing where he was going to suddenly become a starting quarterback and a get-rich-quick scheme of sorts, this magic beans philosophy that Browns fans have sort of adopted any number of times at this position, hoping that this was going to magically fix the solution, and it just doesn't work that way. That's not to say Shedeur Sanders can't be a great quarterback. There's certainly a path, although we've seen the fatal flaws that could kill his career if he doesn't fix them. But it's going to take time. And now, given everything we just saw and just the ugly tidal wave of commentary that came out of that, for anyone who understands what they're looking at could see that Shedeur Sanders was causing his own problems. There was protection, there were open receivers, and he just couldn't operate. And then it got to a point where, people were criticizing Kevin Stefanski for taking him out. I thought he was protecting I thought he was protecting Shedeur from himself, because there was a point where it looked like he was almost like a boxer, just trying to fight to stay up and just getting bigger and bigger hits. And I think if it was going to stay like that, he was going to get himself killed. He was already in a flak jacket. So I think it's that it came to a point of, this is a preseason game. It's not worth it. Let's get him out there. He doesn't have it today, and we're going to continue to work with him, which is exactly what they should do.
Yeah, and again, just fans don't want to hear it. Be patient. We'll see. I'm with you. There are some things he does well. There are some things that just aren't going to play in the NFL that he does, and unfortunately, we saw a lot of those against the Rams. One guy who Kevin Stefanski came out and said he's on the team, Aiden Huntington. Mike Renner from CBS Sports pushing the pile with what he's seen from Huntington.
He already made the roster. Kevin Stefanski said after the weekend that he's on the roster as a UDFA. He played edge last year, though. He's played defensive tackle over the course of his career, but last year at Tulane, he was rushing the passer off the edge. And I remember watching his tape, and this was after I saw his testing numbers. I go back and watch his tape, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is one of the weirdest defensive prospects I've can remember. Now, he is a little stiff. I'm not going to say this guy, you see the testing numbers, all world potential. There's a reason he was still a UDFA, but with that kind of effort and what he put on tape this preseason, that's a guy you want in your D-line rotation wholesale. So he's going to stick around the league for a while.
Yeah, and he showed up again against the Rams. Anytime they put him on the field, he seems to show up. Your thoughts about Huntington and how good this defensive line can be?
Huntington's explosion testing is on par. I mean, literally on par with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is in a whole different world, and yet Aiden Huntington is right there in terms of speed, jumps, all those things that you test. 6 foot 280. He jumped 38-inch vertical, which is just ridiculous, and you can see it when he gets off the ball. And I watched him at Tulane, and it's weird because he looks shorter because he's so strong. It makes him look like even shorter than he is. He's got short arms. These are things that work against him. But his explosion, his ability to get off the ball is a really good fit with Jim Schwartz. It made sense the second they signed him that this could be an interesting fit. It is built from there. He's on special teams making all kinds of tackles there, and he's terrifying. From a fan's perspective, it's really fun watching this giant man run down the field and track down tackles, and then they put him on an offense. He's just a huge, strong man. You can use him for all these things. So from a defensive line standpoint, it's just one more weapon they have, and it fits what they want. They want to be able to get after the quarterback. They want every single person on this defensive line to be able to get after the quarterback, to the point where they even traded Juwan Briggs, who I really liked, to the Jets to provide more room to get more guys to get after the quarterback. So that's what they want to be. That's who they are, and they've got a ton of bodies to get after it. Now, Aiden Huntington destroying preseason, is it realistic to now expect he's going to just carry that over into the regular season? Probably not, but if he can make a couple plays a game or over the course of the season, it's going to be valuable on top of everything else. And we haven't even seen Myles Garrett out there or Mike Hall. So they've just got a ton of talent in that group.
What are some positions that concern you? And I know that's the back half of the roster that they'll be tweaking with later today, tomorrow, trades, free agents that get cut. What areas do you think need the most attention to try to upgrade from Andrew Berry in the front office?
Yeah, I think the most logical place to start is running back. The Browns, obviously the Quinshon Judkins situation is still playing out. The Browns are just waiting for the league to basically give them the go-ahead on this thing, to give them direction. But they need to get another running back, and it always made sense that waivers were going to provide them a good option that were better than what they had sort of at the back end of their roster. So I expect them to make a claim there. And then the other natural place is corner. I don't expect them to overhaul the room the way some people do, but I do expect them to pick up somebody to find a specific fit that makes sense for them. Those are the two positions that really stand out as places to sort of add and tweak. I don't expect the Browns are going to make, 8 waiver claims or something like that. I think it's about tweaking and finding fits rather than trying to just overhaul the bottom of their roster.
All right, before I let you go, and I think you agree, if they're going to be competitive, defense has to be elite. What do they need to do defensively? That line is outstanding. I kind of like the young linebackers. I know they're somewhat unproven. Just your thoughts on let's go back 7, because I think we both agree the line's really good.
Well, I think Carson Swetch is just going to be sensational for what they need him to be. Obviously, there's going to be some rookie mistakes and all those things, but he plays so fast. He's big. He looks great on the blitz. He can drop back, and it's just his size makes him problematic for pass coverage. He just takes up a lot of room. Those things are really valuable. We got to see where Mahmoud Diabate is because he's missed time with injury, but they really like him. And Jason Tarver just does a really good job with linebackers in general. So I never worry about that position. It's entirely what's going to happen with the secondary and what the Browns have with their defensive front, the linebackers, and scheme sort of cover up any deficiencies they have, losing Martin Emerson. They've got Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome. Can those guys stay healthy? And, who's the third guy? Are they going to use safeties to sort of help cover up some of that? And if they do, who's that third safety going to be? We've got all these questions beyond Grant Delpit and Ronnie Hickman, how the rest of that room's going to fill out. So, there's a little bit of a mystery in terms of just who's going to line up the first play of the game in that secondary and how good it's going to be. But I think the Browns are counting on the fact that their defensive line is going to be outstanding. The linebackers are going to be good enough to help cover up some deficiencies. And then the bet they're making, I think, is that if the defensive line is as good as they expect, there aren't that many teams that have enough offensive linemen to block and enough receivers to give them problems that they can't at least just cover long enough for that defensive line to get home.
Pete Smith, Orange and Brown Report, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks very much, Pete.
Thanks for having me. Pete
Smith, make sure you check him out. Always really good and insightful coverage of the Browns. You can catch him on the Orange and Brown Report. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.